There we go. All right, well, welcome everybody. Again, I'll repeat myself for the recording. So this is the depth workshop, and today I'm going to be covering with you 4 easy ways to add the illusion of depth to your paintings. And I'll be painting in watercolor, but really this is something that it doesn't even have to be painting. It could be a drawing. These are tools that could be used pretty much in any two-dimensional medium. And the key to that is two-dimensional. Excuse me. Because what we're doing when we're painting like a landscape or even a still life or a person is we're taking a thing, an object or scene that actually exists in 3 dimensions, right? It's real. We have length and width and depth. And we're taking that thing and we are translating it to a piece of paper, 2 dimensions, length and width only. So the way to help make it feel more real is to trick the viewer by using different tools and techniques that mimic what that 3 dimensions look like in real life and creating that in 2 dimensions. So that's what we will be doing today. And these are 4 different things that you can use alone, or you can layer them in conjunction with each other. And if you use all 4, boy, you're going to have a very believable sense of depth in your paintings. So, but you don't have to use all 4. And you can take baby steps even and use one at a time. And for more advanced artists, you can use them as you see fit. So you may want to use one of them and not another because you want to break the rules or you want to distort reality. So again, we'll do them individually. And that's what I'll do is I'll introduce each one individually. And then what we'll do is we'll layer them together. And we'll have time to do at least one painting. And I'll be working in watercolor again, but we'll draw first and then we'll paint. So we'll have time to do at least one. And we, depending on questions and how long things take, we may have time to do 2. So that's what we're going to be doing today. So what do you need for today? So some paper that's maybe not your best paper. You don't need good quality paper. And this is for practice sketching. So a few pieces maybe of copy paper. I have too many. I have more than enough right here. So just copy paper is fine, or any scratch paper. You could use the back of maybe a painting you did that you're not pleased with, you weren't going to go forward with. And then I've got a couple of pieces of watercolor paper. I'll be using the Meeden paper 7x10, which is a nice size, not too small and not too big. So the other thing you'll need is a pencil, and an eraser will be helpful. And then a ruler. I like this ruler because it's clear. It's actually a fabric ruler and it has these little grippy rests on it, but I use it for drawing because I like that it's see-through. So any kind of straight edge will do. Doesn't have to be a ruler. We are not measuring anything today. It's just for straight edge. And then you can use a pen if you prefer, if you're confident, instead of a pencil. And then just your watercolor materials if you want to paint. You may just end up wanting to watch this time and paint the next time. So that's what we're going to do today. So there will be some interspersion of painting. And so we won't be just drawing and then painting at the end. There'll be some interspersion. So I'll give people time to sort of change up their workstations. Okay. So welcome, Mary. I see that, Mary, you're here. Thank you for letting me know you're coming in late because I opened up the waiting room for you, which makes it easier for me. Okay. So any questions before we get started? By the way, we'll take a bio break in the middle, just a short one. Everybody can get up and stretch. And Carol, is that your kitty cat? That's very cute. You could just do this. So I shut mine out today, so we should be pretty uninterrupted here. So I'm going to be switching back between like a PDF and my visualizer so you can see what I'm doing. But I do have some slides for everybody. So sometimes my visualizer is a little slow. Hopefully not today, but bear with me when I toggle. Okay. So the subject for today is depth for landscape painters. Now, this depth could be used for things other than landscaped. You might want to create depth in a still life, for example. But specifically today, our subjects will be photos of landscapes and imaginary landscapes that we create. Okay. So we're going up to the mountains. So I chose this mountains picture as my first subject. Okay. So what are the 4 tools that I use to create the illusion of depth? Very simply, they are value, perspective, temperature, and detail. And we'll cover them in order. So value, what does that mean? It just means a relative darkness or lightness. Okay. Perspective or scale, what does that mean? Well, perspective is the illusion of things going back into the distance or coming forward. And scale is the size of things as they recede or come forward in that perspective. Okay, so perspective is scary for a lot of people. I think maybe value and temperature might be a little bit intimidating too, but I'm going to make them really easy. We will not be learning any math today. We will not be learning science today. We won't be talking about grayscale today. This is going to be really simple. So no intimidation allowed here today. What is temperature? Temperature, again, is the relative warmth or coolness of an object or thing. And then by detail, I mean the level of detail, the amount of detail in an object or field. So these are 4 tools that we as artists have at our disposal in order to create the illusion of things going back into the distance on a 2-dimensional plane or coming forward. So let's cover them one by one, shall we? Okay. So value. So this picture isn't particularly in perspective. There is some hint of scale because you just can't help it, but not much. And there's no temperature differences because it's one color. It's all cool. So the main tool that I've used here to create the illusion of depth in this painting is value, darkness and lightness, and choosing where my darks and lights go. Okay, so here are the rules, 3 of them, very simple. Close objects, close things, things that are close to the viewer. That means in the front of your picture plane. Let's say in the foreground, those things appear to our eyes to be darker. So as artists, we will make them darker. Things that are further away, things that are in the distance, not only do they lose contrast, they also become lighter. So as artists, we're going to fade those things out and make them lighter. So you can make your things in your painting, objects, entire fields, appear to recede by fading them out. It's that simple. So if we go back to this picture, the darkest landmass appears to be closest to us. It's not in reality any closer to us. It's on a flat picture plane, correct? The one in the midground is a little bit lighter. And then as you go back, it gets lighter and lighter and lighter. And if you think about a photo, and I didn't grab one because I think we all have these photos in our minds of, you know, I always think of like Purple Mountain's Majesty, right? Layers of mountains. When you look at them, the mountain that is the most vibrant and colorful even also is the one closest to you. And as those layers go back, they fade out, they pastel out, and they also blue out and purple out. That's where Purple Mountain's Majesty came from. There are actually no real purple mountains that I know of in reality. They just look like that. Why do they look like that? It's the way that light interacts with our eyes, the way we see color in the light spectrum. So, I mean, excuse me, in the color spectrum. So that is why things appear to sort of fade out and purple out. It's just atmospheric perspective. So you can use that and to our advantage. Okay. And not only do they appear lighter as they go back, they also fuzz out. They lose contrast. So you may have a mountain that's close to you and you can see a lot of detail on it. And as things go back into the distance, not only do you lose detail that sort of seems to like fuzz into the next layer or fuzz into the sky, right? So one really easy way to create that value change is to use gradation. Everybody know what gradation is? Gradated color is when color is darker and then goes to lighter, whether it's from top to bottom, bottom to top, left to right, or right to left. Gradation is like, think of it as like ombre. So gradation is an amazing tool if you're a watercolorist, because it's the easiest way to do things. You can gradate in any medium. Like if you do it in oil paint, excuse me, you have to add dark and light, like a white paint to fade things out and a darker paint to darken them. But in watercolor, we just use full strength and then water things down a lot of the time. It's a very simple gradation. So, oh, I meant to show you, sorry, not that. Give me a sec. I wanted to show you a preview here. It just takes a second. So in black and white, can you guys see the black and white version?
Yes.
Okay. So in black and white, it's more obvious, right? That this yellow and blue color goes from dark to light. In fact, the blue, the gradation of the sky is too much. I was a little heavy-handed on this because skies don't actually gradate that much. There usually would be a little thin strip of blue at the top in this kind of a shallow sky. But as artists, we often exaggerate things. So it's very easy to see in black and white. And if you're just using, for example, pencils, the way to gradate would be just to darken and lighten the pressure of your pencil as you press down. So you may press it more heavily at the top, and then you lighten up the pressure as you come towards the horizon. Same thing here. You're going to darken the area that's closest to you. And by loosening up on the pressure, as you go back, you can create that gradation. You can create it many ways. So you could also, if you had just a Bic pen or something, you can use a cross-hatching technique, right? So in cross-hatching, you're creating the value by depending on how many layers you have of crosses. So the more you cross over, the more darkness you have and the more white of the paper that you cover up. So you can create that same feeling, that same gradation just through layering your pen and pencil. Another way to do it, by the way, and this is great if you're doing a value thumbnail, is to use these shaded artist pens, shaded markers. So the white of the paper consists of your lightest value, and then you can use these pens, which are in different shades of gray, and you can use these to convey gradation. Okay, these are really basic. It's so much prettier in watercolor, right? But sometimes we're doing a sketch beforehand, and you want to cover that gradation. Likewise, you could, by the way, smudge. Smudging is good. So does everybody know how to gradate a wash in watercolor? Let's do it now. Let's do one together because we can use it for another painting in the future. But I also think it's helpful to practice it, and we're going to do a full painting later today. So what I'll do is I'll just cut this paper in half. I'll do a small one, and I'm just going to use my ruler to create a rectangle to give me some borders for my painting. And then I'll use this to make a simple horizon line. Okay. I just want to divide the sky and the land. If you feel fancy, put a house or a tree in there or something. You don't have to. So you'll notice I lowered the horizon just slightly under half. It's slightly less than half. To be more dramatic, I usually would have chosen and lowered it even more or raised it. So I would either have more of a sky focus or land focus. And this is just a basic rule of composition. Don't put the horizon right in the middle. Generally, it's not interesting, apparently, and it doesn't keep our eyes moving. So the easiest way to accomplish gradation in watercolor is to wet the paper first. And so I will just use clear water and thoroughly wet the paper. And I'll wet it almost all the way down to that pencil line, almost all the way. Now, normally I mix my color up beforehand, but we're just getting really simple practice moves in here. So I'm just going to do gradate the sky, and then I'm going to gradate the land. And I'll just use a blue. I'll use an ultramarine. I have a French ultramarine actually right here. And I'm going to mix up a nice thick creamy puddle and just run a loaded brush across the top. So depending on how gradated you want it to be, you could just let it bleed right now. Tilt it a little and let it flow down. See how it's starting to flow? But if you want a little more color in the sky, then you water down the paint and you overlap and you do one more layer. And then I usually just do a layer of clear water and let that flow down. So it's a basic gradation. If you feel like it's not enough, now's the time to go back in. And I almost always do this, darken up the sky, the top just a little bit. So why is the top of the sky? Why is that darker? It's because it's actually closer to us. So if you were standing right here next to this house and looking up, that sky would be closer to you than, for example, if you looked past the house and you looked far away at the sky that's out in the distance, because that sky is up, but it's also far away. So this is why the top of the sky in the picture plane appears to be darker. And this is almost always the case. You may have different things going on during sunrise and sunset, but during the daytime, generally, what you're going to see is a darker top to your sky. It may not be this dramatic, as I said before, but we can dramatize things a little bit as artists. Mm-hmm. Okay. The more you tip it, the more it'll combine. You could tip it left and right if you don't like the look of that flow that's happening. Just don't go over it again. Some artists, by the way, to get a really, really nice smooth gradation, like Thomas Schaller, he takes a soft, fluffy brush like this. And he doesn't do it while it's wet. You have to wait a beat. But he waits a beat and then he smooths it out. See how I just got rid, and he'll do it in both directions too. But see how I just got rid of those drip lines? They were very subtle, so it was a very subtle change. But having a little fluffy brush, and by the way, this brush was dry. Having a brush like this is super helpful if you like to get that really smooth sky. It's very little. In fact, there's hardly anything that comes off, but it's a super helpful tool and one I don't think I've ever mentioned before. How'd everybody do? Yeah. Takes a little practice. That's why we start small. By the time you're ready to go to a big picture, it's a little bit easier. And anyway, we're going to cover this up, right? Maybe we would put some clouds in it. Maybe we would put some trees in front of it, mountains in front of it. There's so many things. So it doesn't have to be perfect. But getting that gradation is what gives you depth in the sky. If you choose to not gradate the sky and make it flat wash, that is an artistic choice. But just know you won't feel like that big sky feeling. For those of you guys who are coming up to the mountains with me, this big sky feeling is extremely helpful. It's really good over an ocean too, for those of you who like to paint the water. Okay, so to paint the land, the easiest thing is to turn the paper over. Now you could wait till the sky is 100% dry, That's a good idea, but we don't have time for that. So I'm just going to leave a little white strip. When you're in a hurry, you can always leave a little white strip. And as long as you don't tip the paper too much, your paint won't cross that border from the wet to the dry. Okay, so before I use the gold, I'm going to use a green this time. And again, you're going to make it nice and creamy to start. Why? It needs to be a little bit thicker because the wetness of the paper that you just wet down is going to dilute it, right? So first layer, nice and thick. The second layer, I'm adding water in my palette and I'm watering this mixture down. Oh, look at that green go. It's happy to just move. And then the last layer is just clear water for me. And you can tip a little. And remember, you can always tip it back if it starts to be a little too much for you. You can also take a thirsty brush and grab a little bit of that top part back again. And remember, you can always darken the bottom up just a little bit more. So there we have, just using two straightforward colors, we have a gradated sky and gradated land. So it's a believable sky. And in this picture, this ground plane, which is a simple rectangle, appears to go back a little bit. There are other things we can do to make it believable. This is just a base, right? It's just a first step. But I'll give you another example since we're here. If you had another house, not only can I make it bigger, but I also can make that house darker than the one in the background. So I'm just going to make a house. What color would that house be? Let's say it's red, okay? It's a barn. So I can make, and it's going to bleed and everything because the paper's wet, but I'm just going to paint it and then I'm going to show it to you. So that barn that's in the front can be quite dark. And then as I go to the back and that little one, I can lighten it up. So we're using the value of the gradation of the flat planes, but also value of objects. And the darker object will appear to come forward. So this is something to think about when you're out there in real life. We have this tendency that we, especially as beginners, we want to paint things as we see them. But as we see them is not always convincing on paper. So what if that were a white barn and that was actually the darker one in real life? You don't have to make that a white barn. You can make this barn the same color, and what it will do is it will add to the believability. In person, that white barn still appears to come forward because you're there in person and it's three-dimensional. But once you put it onto paper, you can lose that believability. So rather than paint just what you see, paint what you know to be true in terms of the artistic construct. No one will say to you, wait, when I was there, that barn was actually white. They won't say that. Now, if you love the white barn, that's great, but you're going to have to do other things to make sure that that white barn appears to come forward, right? And we have these other constructs that we can use to make sure it comes forward. But if you're simplifying things, you're making it easier for the eye and the brain to read it in 2 dimensions. Does that make sense, everybody?
Yeah.
Okay. So is there any questions or anybody want to share? We have a few minutes for share time.
So Anne, this is Mary. So if it had been trees, it would be the same concept, right? More detailed trees.
Yeah. Yeah, more detailed and more value in the front, less value in the back. Yeah. So for example, I'll show you another picture that I've got here. Where do I have that picture covered?
Yeah.
Okay. So in this picture here, this is a detail illustration, but also ignore the detail and just look at the value, like squint your eyes. Darker, medium, a little bit lighter as we go back, okay? So it's not just more detail in these, it's also darker, medium, lighter, and it appears to go in the distance. So any object that's in the front or middle of your picture plane can be darker than the ones that are in the background as you recede. They don't have to be, again. For example, what if all the trees in the foreground had snow on them and they were mostly white and the ones in the background didn't? Then you might want to capture it as it is. But again, a really easy way to make it believable is darker and then lighter as you go towards the back. So any object at all. It's a great question, Mary. Anybody else? Anybody have a really good gradation that they want to share? I've messed mine up with adding extra colors that pushed some of my gradation away. Yeah, Diane, I see you holding yours up. Oh, nice. Nice and smooth. Beautiful. Yeah, and do you get that feeling, you guys, when you look at that that is actually three-dimensional, even though it's not? It looks a little like the one in the rear is floating because we haven't put shadows on it yet, but it looks further away and floating. It still looks further away, and the darker one up front looks closer. Yeah, good job. Good job. Yeah, we didn't get to shadows, so that's okay. There's obviously things we can
It does look like it's floating.
Yeah, because you have to ground something either by putting a shadow or making it darker at the bottom or putting a little line of shadow of foliage where it would be sitting or something like that. Yeah, but that's a really nice gradation.
Thank you.
Yeah, anybody have trouble?
No, I didn't use enough water. Didn't use enough water.
Okay. Yeah, so sometimes it's helpful to mix your color up first and then put the water on the paper, because whether you don't use enough water or you use enough and you have too much time mixing, that what tends to happen is that the paper will dry too much. And then when you lay the paint down, you'll get streaks that won't flow. And for gradation, you really want that flow. That's why it's really the easiest to do it on wet paper. It could be done on dry paper, but it's harder. It's much harder to get that really nice smooth gradation. Now, it doesn't have to be smooth. You could paint stripes like nobody's stopping you, right? What if it was a field, a planted field? Maybe you wouldn't want it to be wet. You would want to see those stripes because that can enhance the texture in it. So it's not always necessary. But wetting the paper and mixing the paint up first is definitely helpful. Mary?
Okay. Oops, unmute. I'm unmuted, right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
The green kind of ran up to the thing that was okay because I would probably make a tree out of it.
That's okay.
Yeah, and so
You
I'm
have
like,
a subtle gradation
yeah,
in the green, but sometimes it flows more than you want it to.
yeah,
So good job with that. The way to fix that, you guys, if you want to fix it, is when it's dry. Oh, sorry. I thought I spotlighted myself. When it's dry and, oh, there we go. Thank you for the hearts. You guys are so cute. So this one is dry. If I want, I can repeat the process. I can re-wet the sky or re-wet the land or both, and I can add another layer and it will still be smooth and it will basically be glazing over the layer that's already there. So for example, if this part had turned out to be super flat, which it did, as you could see, I added some texture. You can either do a dry sort of texturizing kind of gradation, and this also accomplishes the part we haven't gotten to yet, which is more detail. It's not a lot of detail, but it's a tad more because it's not a flat wash. Or you could just flat wash over it. So if I wanted to flat wash over the sky, my water's already the wrong color. I'll do it in a different color blue, so it's obvious, it's more obvious. I'll do it in like a purple. But you can just do the same process again. Don't know if it's that obvious. You could do the same process again when it's dry. Just don't do it until it's fully dry. But you can color correct in that sense, and you can add to your gradation. I would say if you're trying to correct a gradation, don't wet the whole thing like you did last time. Only wet a little bit more than the part that you want to darken up. Rather than just have it look like a stripe, add a little bit more water and then just do maybe like 1 band or 2 bands rather than 3 or 4. And that way you can just enhance the gradation. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
if you were to add clouds, would you do it while the sky was still wet so you could
Yeah.
take out? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you can take it out. That's a whole other class, by the way, and that is actually on my YouTube channel, but you can, while things are wet enough, and they're not wet enough right now, but maybe with this one, you just push your tissue in it. You just press a crumpled tissue in and you can pull out some beautiful clouds. That's one great way to make clouds. Let's say that you, and we're getting a little off topic, but I don't mind. Let's say that you waited and your sky isn't wet and you don't want to really darken it because you can't just re-wet it and do it. You'd have to put color in it. Well, why not just create a darker cloud? There's nothing saying that you couldn't have your clouds be darker. That happens all the time, right? You could scrub some out also with a lifting technique.
That looks cool.
So there's different, and you also could use an opaque white. So there's different ways to put clouds in there. But yes, the best way, pull them out while things are still wet. Yeah, good questions. So good job, everybody. So let's go back to our different tools that we have at our disposal. So that's just my placeholder. Okay, so let's get to the scariest one. Linear perspective is the second tool that we have at our disposal. So linear perspective is objects that appear to recede or come forward along the lines of perspective, which basically is going towards a vanishing point or more than one point at the horizon. Okay, so it sounds confusing. It's not that hard. The best thing when you're looking at a scene that's like a sprawling scene, whether it's an oceanscape or a landscape or even a streetscape that just has, it's kind of more like long and wide, is single point perspective. You do not need 2-point perspective. 2-point perspective is where things start to get a little more confusing or difficult, and same with 3-point perspective. But for single point perspective, it's pretty easy. So I'm going to show you guys how to do it. Oh, oops, that's too soon. So I'm going to show you guys how to do it in the most simplest way. So I'm going to share my screen now. Is when you're going to want your cartridge paper. Okay. So let's grab our plain paper. I'll just turn it over. So we're working on this one. And I'm just going to create another rectangle here. It is a great idea to just practice really basic single point perspective. And you can do it from a real scene or you can do it from your imagination. I tend to like sprawling landscapes and I love panoramas. I find them to be dramatic. So I'm always utilizing single point perspective. So with single point perspective, and we'll do this against a photo in just a minute, but to make things really simple, I want to do it without a photo, okay? Single point perspective, you're going to find the eye line. For our purposes, the eye line and the horizon are the same thing, but sometimes you can't see a horizon. If you're looking out at the ocean, boy, it's really easy to see the horizon, right? But if you're looking at, let's say, a field of trees with mountains behind it, you may not be able to see the horizon, which is where the sun sets on the land. You won't see it. You'll see maybe the outline of the tops of the mountains. That's a different thing. So we'll call it the eye line. And I'll just put it right in the almost middle of the paper. So the first thing you want to do is determine the eye line. And it basically is a straight line. It's very important for it to be straight. I can't tell you how many beginners paintings I did where my horizon line was crooked. Let me tell you, it's not believable immediately when your ocean is crooked. Okay? So use a ruler if you have to, or any straight edge. Then what you're going to do for single point perspective is just pick a point on that line, any point. If you pick a point in the middle, then you'll have a very symmetrical composition, right? Maybe you don't want that, but let's do that one first. And then all you're going to do is just draw lines that radiate out in all directions, like a pinwheel. And you can draw as few or as many as you want. This is literally single point perspective. This is it, you guys. And so I usually draw the big ones, and then I break those up in half. And you don't even really need a straight edge to do this. Eventually, it's so simple, but it's helpful. So what this means is that objects are going to be lined up against these lines. So if you have a river, for example, your river will be lined up like this. That could be your river. See how it appears larger coming towards you and smaller going away. This also could be a river over on this side, or a path, or a highway, or anything like that. What else could be your river? Anybody? What about this middle? This middle area, I'll just darken it with a pen to make it obviously different, right?
It looks like a road.
Yeah. It looks like a road, yeah. I mean, it's not the most interesting picture like this, but by the way, buildings follow the same construct. So the top of these buildings are going to fall. Let's say this is a road and these are sidewalks. There's really, I don't know any road that looks like this, but let's just pretend. Now, some of these buildings might be taller, but do you see how the tops of the buildings are following these diagonal lines, right? So some of them may be shorter, some of them may be taller. They're following these lines, and that is what makes them believable. If they were not following, trying to find my dark pen, if you took the top of the building and you drew it like this, all of a sudden it doesn't look believable because it's not following the lines of perspective that it should. Okay, so you would have a wonky building, right? So if you need more lines, you draw more lines. And then those lines can be erased, right? So let's say you're not good at imagining where those lines are, then you just draw more of them. But those lines, and then you can see the sides of the building here. So those lines are what help you with the illusion of perspective. Likewise, if you drew the bottom of the buildings like this, that would also look incorrect as well, because these look like they're coming flat towards you. And actually, the only building that would be flat coming towards you is the one that's right here at the end of the perspective. So if this were a train on a track, and this were the track, this is exactly what your train would look like. But if the train were coming this way, the train's going to look like this. Here's all the windows of the train. Whoops. So that is one point perspective. This is not the most nice looking perspective. It's not as interesting, but when you want a really strong classical composition, you put that focal point right in the middle, the vanishing point it's called. So let's do a couple more and let's make them more interesting. Okay. Anybody having trouble lining up the lines, by the way? If you are, let me know, because I'm going to do it again. So you may want to watch. instead of practicing, just watch. But you're basically, I like to say, it's a pinwheel. Okay, so I'll put the horizon line a little bit higher this time. Let's get some drama in our landscape here. And then rather than put the vanishing point in the middle, let's put it over here. Okay, so now when we'll start with the vertical. Now when I draw lines through here, it's going to be a little more interesting. And remember, there could be an endless number of radiating lines, endless. I'll connect this one. And all you have to do is actually just keep slightly moving your ruler, just making sure you cross through that dot. See the drama in this situation, you guys? By the way, I feel like I need maybe 1 or 2 more lines here. Okay. So now if I'm going to draw a road, and for now we're just drawing straight roads. They're not the most interesting thing, but we'll get more complicated later. So now if we're going to have a road and that road's coming toward us, it could be anyone on anyone, or 2, I should say, really, or a river or a stream or whatever you want it to be. Again, it could be a fence on any one of these radiating lines. If you want a line of a fence that's going straight, it'll be here. And also you notice that when I drew the fence line, you make the top of it, you make sure that the bottom stays the same, but the top of it is going to get smaller and smaller, right? Likewise, if you had, we'll do some trees in a bit. If you had trees, they would follow the same construct, okay? So any one of these could be your visual interest of a road, a river, a stream, a wall, etc., etc. Does that make sense, everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's try one more one-pointer. I'll make it slightly off center, but maybe not as dramatic as before. And again, it could really be any straight edge. You don't need a ruler. You could use the back of your sketchbook, of another sketchbook, when you're in a pinch. We'll talk about the clouds and perspective in just a minute, because I'm ignoring the sky. I know I'm ignoring the sky. Okay. All right. So here's my vanishing point. And maybe I should chop these up just a little bit more. Here we go. So the more spokes you put in, the more nuance you have to things, right? You don't have to put so many spokes in. But let's say you wanted to have a line of trees. Well, your line of trees, I'm going to start mine here. My line of trees, I need one more of these guys at least. Let's do one more of these. My line of trees will start, let's say it's like a row of cypress or something. My line of trees will start and be approximately all here. You're not always going to have things line up exactly, but this is just a helpful way to practice before you get to the next step, which is harder. So the most important thing is that you can have trees that are taller and shorter, but none of your trees should go above this line. It'll be too confusing. So if you're going to make the trees, make some of them shorter. Don't make them go above that line. But they get smaller and smaller as you go into the distance. Eventually, they will just be a dot. By the way, the lines that are going perpendicular, like your grid, You can draw those in too if that helps you. For some people, that's helpful, but you don't need it. But it may help you with your verticals, for example. Keep your trees going straight up and down, for example. Okay. I want to show you guys some more examples. So here's one where it looks a little bit more like a real story. So I've got trees here that are all on my perspective lines. They're not all on the same diagonal, but they all are following the construct of getting smaller as they go into the distance. I also have a path here. Now this path zigzags a bit, but again, it still follows my radiating lines. And then even my bushes or rocks at the side of the path, they follow these radiating lines going back. Got a couple more that I'll show you. And then we'll talk, and that plays into scale, by the way. Oh, here's some. So your paths and your rivers, they don't need to just come straight forward. Sometimes they're crooked and winding, but as they're crooked, they're still following this general sense of being on the diagonals and coming towards you on the picture plane. And then when they flatten out on those horizontal grid lines. So see these horizontal grid lines? And then this river, let's say, it'll follow this diagonal and then flatten. Then it'll follow this diagonal and then flatten. Diagonal, diagonal. And that flattening is why they appear to be real as well. Because if it was just a zigzag that went like this, that wouldn't make any sense. At some point, they need to lay on the landscape. So rather than this, this. Does that make sense? You guys see that? Did someone say no?
And
So-
can I ask a quick question?
Yes, of course.
As you're doing the single point perspective, you have items that are, as things move closer to that single point, would the value also change because they're further away, so they would get
Yes.
lighter?
Yeah, so that's how you would layer two of these tools. So not only would they get smaller in perspective, but they also would fade out. Good question. Let's do another one. So we've got, I'm not even going to draw all the radiating lines, but I'll draw here. Here's a perspective point. Okay. So if I want my path to come out this way, and then I want to have some trees maybe on this line, I'm not really even drawing all the radiating lines. I'm just knowing that my trees are getting smaller and smaller towards that point. And if that's my focal point, let's say that's where the sun is setting in the sky, even though I haven't painted the sky yet. If that's where the sun is going down, I want to draw the eye in that way. So not only is it believable, it's also leading the picture, the viewer into the picture compositionally. Let's do another one. So after a while, you won't need to even draw all these lines unless things become like, maybe let's say kind of complicated. So even though these bushes here in the foreground are probably tiny compared to these trees in the background, they are drawn much bigger because of how close they are to us. And again, rather than ending all of these trees, you can't end all the trees on the same line. The bottom of the trees has to go back in accordance with the imaginary diagonal. We'll do another one. So let's say this is a mountain, and you want to draw a little path that's coming from the mountain. Well, all the way back here, that path will be so skinny. And then as it gets closer to you, it gets bigger and the angle gets wider at which it approaches you. And then back here, just a little line of trees. So when you're looking out at a photo or a series of photos, maybe you went on vacation, always draw the horizon first, find your focal point, and then practice. Just practice little thumbnails like this. You'll get good at it pretty quickly. And even if some of it is less than believable, like let's say you mess up one part and you're like, oh, I put that in the wrong place. If most of it is correct, you'll end up having a pretty believable drawing. So some of these sketches that I did while I was sick, I could show you in this sketch, and maybe you guys can help figure it out, is where is the vanishing point? So here's the horizon. And when I look at the lines, they're going radiating out like this. So my vanishing point is up here. Very dramatic. I wanted it to look like a real long view of a day at the beach. This is down at Tide Park Beach. But this one, let's look at where, here's the horizon. Where are the lines radiating? Well, this is a very classical composition because they're barely radiating at all. So if they're going to be radiating, it would be out like this. And then let's look at this one. So we've got, here's the horizon, it's very high. Let's look at the angle. Here's the angle of the shoreline. Here's the angle of the waves. Here's where the vanishing point is going to be. There's no real vanishing point. You're just picking it. You're choosing it in a one-point perspective. Let me see if I have any other ones in here. Here's one for an oceanscape. So here's my horizon. This is Seal Beach. I chose to make the vanishing point over here. And then here's the line. So this is the line where the buildings are drawn. Here's the shoreline. Here's the surf line, like the crashing waves. And then the rest of it goes, radiates out this way, where there's not much happening. Okay. Does this make sense, you guys?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, so that yeah, questions?
Sorry, this is Mary. When we did the bridge, was that 2-point perspective?
The bridge.
The
Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah, the Brooklyn Bridge.
I've already forgotten the Brooklyn Bridge.
We were looking up at it. Like,
Yes, it was 2-point. It was actually 3-point because it was, let me spot myself. It was actually 3-point perspective because there was a bit of where, rather than the bridge arches going straight up, they were angled upwards, which when you have a very tall building or structure, you do actually have to use a third point in order to make it feel like it's realistically receding as it also goes up into the sky. So yeah, 2-point perspective is used when you have the corner of something is coming towards you. So when you have the front of a building or front of a structure, or most of it, of what you're looking at is the front, that's 1-point perspective. When you have a corner facing you, then it becomes 2-point perspective. If you're looking out at a street scene and you're standing at a point where the corners of the buildings are all pointing towards you, then you have to use 2-point perspective. I actually have a video and a blog, I believe, on my YouTube and my website. Thanks, Jerry. On my website about perspective, which covers 1- and 2-point perspective. I don't think it covers 3-point. Maybe it does slightly. 2-point is enough, like, to wrap your head around. But it's up there if you guys are interested. So by the way, when also this would work would be for a colonnade. Like if you guys go to Ojai and you want to draw that colonnade, this 1 point perspective is perfect for that colonnade. It looks like trees, but if you look at them as arches and you make them all the same size, shrinking, then it becomes a colonnade. Any other questions? Let's talk about scale, because it is a corollary to linear perspective. So we've kind of been hinting at it, right? We've also been hinting at foreshortening. So let's talk about foreshortening too. Foreshortening is when the object in the foreground really appears almost super dramatically to come towards you and almost flatten out on the picture plane. So rather than seeing the side of this bird's nest, we're seeing almost inside it, like it's flipped up towards the screen. That's a technique that we can use foreshortening to really dramatically make it look like something is coming towards us. So for example, right here, my thumb is very close to my nose, but if I put it here, look how big it is. It's coming right at you. And so you really get a sense of that depth when you utilize foreshortening. So you can exaggerate how big something is and how flipped up towards the picture plane it is. Foreshortening is a corollary to perspective. And then scale is also very important. So I'll take questions in just a second. So scale doesn't have to be that dramatic, but I'll show you some more dramatic examples in just a minute. But scale is the size of things. And so a very easy way to get a sense of distance, even with very little perspective. So if you look at this picture of the cows, I didn't even know about perspective when I painted this picture. I really didn't, like I probably had learned about it in art school and then I forgot. You've got a fence that's straight right in the front of the picture plane. You have mountains that aren't really showing very much perspective. Some of my shading in the background is on angles. So there must have been, you know, something in me that knew don't put everything straight up and down. But just by adding in those little blobs and making some of them smaller, closer to the horizon line, it gives a sense of perspective because the scale of those are different. So a very simple way to add the feeling of things moving away from you is to make them bigger in the front and smaller as you go back. They don't even need to all be relatively the right size. Like some of those cows are bigger and some of them are medium and some of them are small, but they're very haphazard. It isn't really done in a very literal sense. But I think it still ends up translating as kind of believable, don't you guys?
Yes.
So scale is a great tool to employ, even when you don't feel like employing any other tools. So I'll show you another couple of drawings I've done with scale because I've been working on adding more figures to my pictures, and I want to do a painting of people walking in the rain down a city street. I don't know why. I feel like all watercolorists do it, so I want to challenge myself to it. So here's a sketch I did of a gorge, and there are backpackers who are in the gorge. And so what you have is a single point perspective. Your vanishing point is right here. And you've got this stream zigzagging towards the viewer. Again, I could have made it come straight towards us, but I decided to zigzag it to give it more interest. And then I put hikers and people walking at various points. The ones in the front are dramatically larger. And as you go back, the ones going back, these are medium, a little bit smaller, and these are like tiny dots as they recede into the distance. I didn't use perspective lines. So I just was winging it in here. And so the scale maybe not 100% correct. Maybe these should have been a little bigger, or these should have been a little bigger. I don't know. But overall, I think it's fairly believable. The other thing too is that all of the heads are approximately at the horizon line, except for the guy who's bending down and giving his dog some water. the heads are all at the horizon line. And when you put people into a landscape, it's very important that people's eyes are out in the eye line, because when you are standing looking straight out at a scene, I'm not talking about if you're high up or if you're much lower down, let's say, and you're looking up at people on a bridge or something, but if you're standing on a fairly flat picture plane, everyone's heads will all be at about the same level, even as they recede. And that will make it appear that people aren't levitating. It makes people feel grounded. So just something to keep in mind. Even though these are much bigger, this head, this head, this head, this head, this head, this head are all about the same. And the scales are what give you the sense of them going back. And then I have started with my, oh, here's an Eiffel Tower picture. So I drew this guy wrong. But you've got this guy taking a selfie and then a whole crowd of people, and they get smaller and smaller as you go back. I drew the perspective lines in this one, you can see it. And then let's do one more. So your sense of depth doesn't have to be that dramatic. You don't always have to be looking at a super deep scene. Here, this person is not dramatically bigger than this person or this person, but they are getting smaller as you go back. So it's a shallow scene, but there's still a scale in there. I still made sure these people were bigger and that and they're all walking on the street, and this is not going to be my final scene because it's way too crowded. But you get the idea. Sometimes just adding like a stop sign or a fence, a tiny fence in the distance is enough to make it feel the vastness of something and the scale of something. You don't always have to challenge yourself with a person, right? Or a building. Sometimes it's just some kind of sign of life or even something in nature that will tell people, oh, that is very far away. So scale is a great tool that we have at our disposal. And that is actually fairly simple. You're probably doing it anyway without even realizing it. Does that make sense, everybody?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yes. Yeah, that was a great explanation.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so let's take a look at what our third tool is that we have at our disposal. Excuse me. We have temperature at our disposal. And we're going to simplify temperature. We're going to talk about, in terms of our primaries, red and yellow and blue. Okay, so temperature is just the relative warmth or coolness of a thing, an object, a field, whatever it is. And in artwork, cools appear to recede. Cools will push things back into the distance. And warm tones will bring things forward. So when we're talking about temperature in general, and it's all relative, it always is reds. Red is the warmest color. Yellow is the next warmest color. And red and yellow and earth tones are all considered warm. Blue, out of the three primaries, is considered cool. So the cools at your disposal are colors with blue in them. Blue, violet, a true violet, or a blue violet, and a gray. Okay? Warm tones, reds, oranges, yellows, pinks, and earth tones are considered your warms. And if you look at the color wheel, you can split it right down the middle. It's very simple. So when I say things are relative, some of you guys may know that you've got, out of your primaries, you may have a red that is a warm red and another red that is a cool red, right? Cadmium red, for example, is a warm red. Alizarin crimson has a lot of blue in it, so it's considered a cool red. But that being said, reds are still warmer than blue. Yellows are still warmer than blue. So if you want to keep it real simple in your head, here's the picture to remember. Red, yellow, earth tones, those are your warms. Blue, violet, gray, those are your cools. And by employing these in a picture, it will add another layer of depth to your picture if you do it properly. So what you want to do is make sure that you use your warms in the foreground and your cools in the background. It's really that simple. Warm things up using your warm colors and cool things down, push them back using your cool colors. So here you have orange and yellow, both warm colors, and green, which is kind of in the middle. Can be a warm green, can be a cool green, but most of these greens here are warm because they're very yellowy, right? So you've got warmth in the foreground, then you go to your midground, which is the mountains, and they're gray. So it automatically cools them down. And whether we realize it or not, it makes our eye see them as further away. And you have a violet in the sky, which is cooling down as it gradates. And so it's appearing warmer at the top, and it's also appearing cooler at the bottom, which remember, the bottom is further away. The bottom in the sky is further away from you. Does that make sense, everybody? This is a very dramatic example. I mean, that ground is not really orange and that sky was not really purple, but that's how I painted it.
I love
And it's
it.
a very,
I like it.
Love it.
oh, thank you. It's also a very short picture plane, you know, like it's not a big panoramic picture. Is there any of the other constructs at play here that you notice? Anyone?
Um, the intensity of the colors, the ones in
Yeah.
in the foreground have more detail, they're more vivid, and then the ones in the back are more muted. But what
Yeah,
happens,
if you
And
squint up, right?
yeah, you're in a scene. I know this is like for learning this criteria of the perspective, but because I just remember so many flashbacks, or like the mountains are like orangey and the foreground is like more, bluish gray.
And you can do that. You can break the rules and you can get away with it, but you won't necessarily have the depth in your painting unless you're applying some of the other constructs, like less detail, etc. Like, for example, the mountains have quite a bit of detail in them. And I
Yeah.
wanted that because I really wanted that star of the show to be the crenellations in the mountains. So because I wanted to put detail far away, I had to employ some pretty dramatic other constructs in order to make it make sense.
Yeah.
The other things, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Tillery. I was, okay, I'm looking at like your perspective line. So
Yeah,
I can see where you kept those lines on the mountains, the details in between perspective lines. So that's how
and also a tiny bit in the shadows of the path in the foreground.
Yeah,
And and also the way that on the left side, the greenery is leading back is on a perspective line. Like it's not stacked coming towards you, right? It's on an angle. Yeah.
the little plants.
Even the little bits of orange in the background are slightly on lines of perspective. They're slightly flattened out, right? And they should be flattened as you go to the back. Yeah, good. I'm glad you noticed that. The other is level of detail, or scale, I should say. There's not too much level of detail, although as you go back in the orange, you don't see any more greenery back there, although there probably are lots of shrubs back there. They're only hinted at with little lines. And then also scale. So it's not a dramatic scale, but some of the shrubbery gets a little bit smaller as you go back. Some of it. So so different constructs layered in a subtle way, but one of those constructs not so subtle, and that's temperature. I'll show you one more.
And where was that located? It's a beautiful picture.
This is up in Independence, right behind the motel where we're staying.
We're gonna go.
Yeah. Here's another one. You guys probably know this spot, Laguna. by Heisler Park looking back. So what do you see here in terms of color?
So the warm colors are in the foreground with the naturals and then the red, which is the warmest. And then as you retreat behind the hotel, you've got the cooler tones and the lavenders and the light blue
Yeah.
sky.
Blues and purples. And
Yeah.
in fact,
Yeah.
yes, you did pick out the fact that a lot of those greens have brown in them and yellow in them,
Mhm.
but they are interspersed with some more bluey greens, some
Yes.
cooler greens. And those greens hopefully look like they're behind the other greens to a degree, but it's the red that really makes that foreground, the orange and red of those devil's poker plants that really make it come forward.
There's foreshortening in a sense that the plants in the front are bigger, the mountains in the back are smaller, and the mountains are lighter color, so they kind of fade.
Yeah. And again, this is like, there is a lot more detail in the front, but I do have detail in the back. I wanted that detail back there. So I had to make it very clear, like color temperature distinction for sure. But there's still more detail in the front. Like that little building in the back has barely any detail in it, right? It's like hinted at. There's also perspective lines in here. So they're very subtle, but the way that the shoreline curves around, it does curve on some perspective lines. And then also the foreground isn't flat across, it's a little bit on an angle. So if you look at the picture and you see where is the vanishing point, it's on the left behind the palm tree. And the angle lines, you can take your arm and kind of go, it kind of angles. Going from upper left to lower right. And it's subtle, but you see it in the waves. You see it in the angle of the foreground, for example, and even the slope of the top of the bluff. So, yeah.
For color, and because I love the contrast between the cools and the warms, but did you have to like add a little bit of the warm to the cool so they don't like fight each other in the picture?
Yeah, that's a good point. So it makes them more interesting when you mix your warms and your cools to a degree. But the majority of this painting is cool in the background and warm in the foreground. I mean, squint at it. It's all blue in the middle and the background. It really is. Even though some of those blues are warmer, and because some of them have more green in them and more red in them, they're different blues, you know? And the same with the greens. Some of those greens are cool, but it pushes them back. And then some of them have more brown in them and yellow in them, and it pulls them forward. And even in the palm tree, there's different colors. And so, you know, you want to capture what you're seeing in real life. However, at the same time, you can play with the balance, right? So yeah, palm trees have a lot of yellow and brown in them. They're not all green. So just make sure that if you want to push it back, it's got less yellow and more green. You know, we can play with those constructs.
I like the way
Likewise. You go ahead.
I like the way the ocean water is just the hint and the illusion of the water.
It's beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, and I wanted to talk about clouds for a second because we didn't really get to talk about it. So we talked, I'm just going to put on my visualizer. I think we just forgot. I forgot to talk about clouds. So clouds, and I'm not going to use my ruler. I'll just draw a rectangle. Clouds, we talked about how the top of the sky is bigger, is closer to you than the bottom. And why, right? Because of where you're standing. So if I'm standing here, here's my head at the horizon line. If I'm standing here and looking up, the top of the sky here is closer to me than the bottom of the sky, which is actually further away. And again, it's just all about perspective. Clouds don't follow linear perspective. Why? Because they move around. But clouds are still semi-solid objects. And so you can use them to help you create that look of perspective in the sky. So clouds are generally like cube shaped or some form of a cube. But most of the time we don't draw them that way. We draw them as ellipses and forms of ellipses. So if you think about it, we draw clouds like this a lot more than we draw clouds like this.
Yeah.
So to simplify things, think about an ellipse or a flattened circle. And you're going to want those bigger circles up at the top. And then as you go back and lower, your clouds become flatter. Which, and I'm not drawing them overlapping. Generally, they're going to overlap, right? But this is how clouds look in the most simplified sense. And by drawing them this way, not what you're actually seeing, okay? Look at your photo and go, is it a cloudy sky? Are there a lot of puffy ones, a lot of flat ones? Just note it. And then rather than trying to copy what you see in that photo, draw it the way you know will translate. Again, big mistake of artists is to try to draw exactly what's there, trying to match the colors, trying to match all the shapes, forgetting you can eliminate things and simplify things. Translation is the most important thing. So the most important thing to remember is that clouds read as ellipses. And sometimes they won't look like ellipses because they're all on top of each other. So what they end up looking like is this crazy shape. But really, that shape is made up of a bunch of cloud formations that are together or have pulled apart even. So by simplifying things, and especially when it's not a cloud picture, right? Or not a sky picture, B. If your picture is not about the clouds or not about the sky, don't go crazy with them, because you're just going to confuse people. But if you're doing a cloud picture, let's say this was, or you really want to get the sky, if this is your picture, then you can focus on this because you've made 2/3 of your painting about the sky. So you should probably give some thought to the clouds in it. Remember that the bottom of a subject, so I will draw, why can't I draw a cube today? Draw a cube here. The bottom is going to be darker because the bottom of objects have a shadow to them. So just make sure that you darken the bottom of your cloud shapes and darken them correspondingly so that will flatten out. So if you have a puffy cloud and you darken the bottom of it in a similarly sort of puffy way, that will become believable. Doesn't look like it in this very simplified drawing, but that is the way to go. Darken the bottom of the cloud, and then as you get to the horizon, a lot of the time you just end up with all dark. Like it's just a dark line. Think about what you see in the sky. I don't even need to show you guys photos. You know this to be true, right? And the reason why also is you're looking up and you're seeing a little bit of it. You're not looking completely up in the picture, so you're not seeing an entire bottom of a cloud, but you're seeing some of the bottom near the top of the sky. And then as you get further out, you're seeing less and less of it. Does that make sense, you guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And when you draw to your or paint, you're identifying where you want people to the focal point to be in your picture, so it's more detailed, color wise, you know, or whatever, deep, vibrant or whatever. So if you were to draw that cloud sky and the grass, if you want them to focus on the person, however, I mean, is that how you usually approach it? Where do you want their eye to go?
Where I add the level of detail? Yes, for sure. So I use detail in 2 ways or 3 ways. One is to actually describe the scene. Like, what am I looking at? So I might want detail on something because it helps describe it, like the type of tree, the type of bark. The other would be where people look. The more detail you have, the more that person will look. There's different ways to make the person look. That's a composition rule, right? If you want someone to look somewhere, make the dark light contrast stronger, make the level of detail stronger, add a weird color that pops, right? So those are 3 ways to make people look. And then the other way that I use detail is for perspective, to give a sense of depth. More detail up close, less detail far away. Yeah, and as artists, we can break these rules. So let's say I have a really long picture of the mountains And there's a sign in the back that says like, beware rattlesnakes. And for whatever reason, that's what I want to my subject to be. Rattlesnake territory is what I'm going to call my painting. And I just really like that. Well, I can break the rules and I can make that sign far away be the detail and be much more detailed than what I have up front. That's my choice to break the rules. But again, knowing that I'm breaking the rules in that sense, if I still want a sense of depth in the picture, I'm going to have to employ the other tools to get me there since I'm breaking the rule with the depth, with the detail. Yeah, good question. All right, so let's get to, we don't need to do any temperature studies. I feel like probably we're all either there or a 5-minute study isn't going to help us. But just remember that blues, violets, and grays will help recede things, and your warms, your earth tones, reds and yellows will help bring them forward. Okay. So Mary, thank you. You introduced our next and last section, which is detail. So the level, and we've been talking about this all throughout because it really has permeated quite a bit of our discussions, but with detail, the more detail that you have, the closer, the more forward it will bring an object or a plane, and the less detail you have, the more it will appear to recede. So here's a really crowded picture plane with the detail up front. And yes, the scale is receding a little bit, but not a lot. So the scale of those, let's call them blue-gray, simplified building silhouettes in the background, they are a little bit smaller, but they're not radically smaller. But they still appear to be in the background because they're not detailed compared to the ones in the foreground. So shallow picture plane, it still works. Here's a deeper picture plane. So a lot more detail in that forward tree. Also in the snow, even though it's not a ton of detail. How much detail do you want in snow? But that middle ground tree has a little bit less detail. The ones that come next have less detail. And then the ones in the back are just like solid dots, right? So adding more detail to things in the front will help bring them forward. And that detail does not necessarily need to be the, you know, the most specific kind of detail. Like it doesn't have to be a literal description. Yeah, Randy?
Oh, I was just gonna say, with the colors and temperature, there's a, if you got yellow and you want it to be back further, there's a color called Naples yellow, which I'm sure you're aware of. That will take it back into the background, in a cooler sense.
That's great, Randy. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yes, very much. Naples yellow, and also I find lemon yellow is good too.
Yeah. Sometimes you want it to be sort of, you know, you want it to have that, there's sunflowers or whatever, you want it to have that brightness, but recede, so that
Yeah,
helps.
and you can warm up your sunflowers in the front with like yellow ochre or more of a cad yellow, Hansa
Right.
yellow, or gamboge. Those will bring it forward. Yeah, thank you. It's good to have color options.
It is.
So sometimes detail can just be the suggestion of detail. I really want to make that clear because I know a lot of us look at other artists' artwork and we think, I love that abstraction, but then we don't know how to get there ourselves. And it's because it's hard to break free of the desire to translate things literally. So sometimes detail is just texture in the foreground. That can be a detail. Sometimes a color shift can be a detail. Even. I don't mean like a color from a temperature shift. I mean, just slightly tweaking the color can be a layer of detail. So it doesn't have to be a literal where I put in every blade of grass or even any of the blades of grass. It can just be a hint of texture. It can be some dry brush. It can be a shadow, for example, where there aren't a lot of shadows anywhere else. So detail can be a lot of different things and doesn't always have to be a literal translation of what is right in front of you. Just think about how to abstract it, how to make it seem like it's more without trying to copy what's in front of you. I know a lot of us are trying to achieve that level of abstraction. Oh, thank you for that. She said, beautiful mountain picture. Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about putting it together. All right. So remember that in order to create the illusion of distance, you can go lighter, you can go bluer, or if it helps you think of saying going grayer or purpler. I like to think bluer because it's really easy to blue things out. So for example, as things get pushed in the distance, trees, they don't look green anymore. They look blue. Look very carefully next time you're out somewhere like at the Back Bay. Those distant trees are never going to be green on the bluff. They're going to look blue. They may look purple or gray. Okay, so lighter, bluer, smaller, softer. Use your wet on wet techniques to soften things out, right? To fuzz. That's another technique as watercolorists we have wet on wet and we have crisp wet on dry. So to make things look more distant, why not use a wet on wet technique? And then in your foreground, use more dry techniques, okay? Lighter, bluer, smaller, softer, and vaguer gives you a sense of distance to make things appear closer, to really pop them, make them darker. You can make them more vibrant in their colors, make them redder or even yellower. I like to think darker, more vibrant, redder, crisper, as opposed to softer, and more detailed. So those are the key concepts, really simplified. Okay. So it's time to draw. So we've got, here's a pretty, I think a pretty simple one. Okay. So what do we see when we look at this? Shout it out.
The mountain in the center in the distance.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right
Single
there.
point perspective,
Say again.
single point perspective in that.
Single point perspective. Yeah. Where do you think the horizon line is in this picture, you guys?
Right there in the.
The vertex of the two mountain ranges.
Right across them. Yeah, right across them.
The clouds are getting flatter as they get
Yeah.
toward the horizon line too.
Yeah, they sure are. Yeah, and the darker underbottoms of them are also flatter.
If you look at your mountain in the very front, it's just almost black. The color is so dark. Where the
It's so
shadow-
dark. Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that may be because of the shadow of the
Right.
cloud on it, but it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. It works, right?
Mhm. And
Yeah.
in the corner over on the right, there's a shadow on the bush, the orangey bush,
Yeah.
and that really hits that dark again, right in the very corner.
Yeah, so there are nuances, right? There's also a lot of lights. Like if you look at those little like grasses in the lower
Mhm.
left, they're light, but they're light against the dark background. And if you squint, there's way more dark than there is light. So when we're painting, we're simplifying the concept, but we can make it a little more interesting and complicated when we lay it down, as long as you don't have to not put lights in your foreground. That's a crazy thing, right? But there should be more dark than there is light, and that will help you. Yeah. I think that the horizon line is right above the cleft. Right above the cleft there. I also see the temperature. So we haven't talked about temperature, but those greens are pretty warm greens
Mhm.
in the foreground and middle ground. And then that back, look how fuzzy. You can hardly see any detail on that back mountain, and it's very blue. So you've got these olivey green greens in the foreground and even yellow green in the grasses in the foreground and red in that tree, all warmth. And then the top half of this from the distant mountain to the sky is all cool. So when translating this one, it's pretty easy to translate it just the way you see it. It's already kind of done the work for us. sometimes we have to tweak things more, but here, this is pretty good. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
So the highest mountaintops are about 2/3 up from the bottom of the page.
Yeah.
So it's 1/3 then, okay.
Yeah, that's a good thing to note too. I would say this is a pretty equal sky versus land picture. I mean, you kind of are doing both, but if you wanted to tweak it, you could you could raise up the horizon a little and make it more land, and you could sort of cut off some of that sky. So I'm going to take up my watercolor paper, my first page. And do you guys want to do like a little screen capture of this? Or do you want to see, I know I don't have like a double, I wish I had a double scenario, but you could screen capture it with another device, or I could put it back up again in a little while. But I'm going to just draw, this is almost a square. I'm going to make it a little longer just for a little interest, just a little bit longer.
Are we drawing on our watercolor paper then?
Yeah, I'm going to use my watercolor paper. By the way, the other thing I noticed is how gradated the sky is.
Yeah.
It's nice. So yeah, I'm going to, can you guys see my little picture? I'm just going to draw a slightly more of a rectangle here. And then I will draw my horizon line, which is imaginary, but it helps me. And then I'm going to draw that point of perspective, just for practice, right in the middle there. And then I will draw that distant mountain. And then I'll draw the lines of the other mountains coming down. And I'm not going to go crazy. I'm going to simplify things. There are a lot of layers of hills in there, but I'm going to simplify them quite a bit. And then I'm not even going to draw the clouds. If I draw the clouds, the pencil line is going to be there and I'll never be able to really get rid of it. And I don't want that. So after I've drawn my horizon line and my vanishing point, I can then erase.
And can we see what you're doing?
Yeah, I'm going to show you in just a minute what I did.
And what size are you doing? Are you doing 8 by 10? No.
I'm on a 7 by 10 piece of paper, and
You just
I don't
drew.
know if you guys can see this, but give me a second.
Okay.
Are you doing 2H or 2B on your pencil?
It's a Blackwing, so it's definitely more of like a 6B or an 8B, I would say. But I'd rather that you guys can see it. So that's all I'm drawing, you guys. And I don't really like the shape of that mountain that I just drew in the distance. It's a little too humpy. So I'm going to try to observe it a little more carefully than I did originally. There we go. It's a little better. So that's all I'm drawing. That's enough for me for today. Okay. And then everybody has a picture, right? So they can paint against something. If not, you can paint what I'm painting. And I'm going to start with the gradated sky. So I'm going to mix up some blue, and I'm going to give you guys a tip for skies that I didn't give you before. Okay. So in order to really create the illusion of the sky gradating, I also do a little sneaky trick with the temperature of the sky every time, or almost every painting of mine. So what I do is I warm up my blue as I come to the horizon. So I'm going to start off with the ultramarine. And I'm going to do the same thing I did before. I'll do 1 or 2 strokes. And then you notice I'm tilting my paper too, because I don't want blossoms. So I tilt it just a little bit. And then when I get to the bottom of the sky, I change the blue to a turquoise or a cerulean. And I add that in right on top. So I'm basically warming up the sky towards the horizon. Yes, it's further away, but it's also lower and it just seems to work. And I'm not the only watercolor artist who does this. I think there are quite a few. Remember, if you want a more dramatic gradation, now would be the time to do that. It also will help you with more dramatic clouds when you pull them through. Okay. So if you want a really smooth sky, you can wait, and then you can use this little brushy brush trick. Think it's too wet. But what I'm going to do is take a crumpled up tissue, and I'm going to pull some clouds out of the sky. And I'm going to try to follow my lines of perspective, even though clouds don't really follow the lines of perspective. I think it will help it look like everything is converging towards that happy valley down there. And that's what I would probably name this picture if I had to give it a title. It always helps me to think about naming a picture if I'm not sure what it is I'm trying to say in the picture. And then I'll try to pull some thin white ones out down there. It's kind of hard because it's really light. So I might have to really make that obvious when I add some of the shading into these clouds. Okay, so remember that clouds always look a little bit flatter on the bottom. That'll help you. Fluffier on top, flatter on the bottom. So did I copy what these clouds actually look like? No, I did not. By the way, that would take me all day. And when I don't find something to be fun anymore, I stop doing it. So I generally am just getting the idea of the clouds. When I first started painting, I did try to copy clouds or copy the rays of the sunset because I didn't know the constructs. So I didn't know any other way of making them, seem realistic other than trying to copy them exactly. But then I learned that actually isn't the right way to go about it. You learn what is true and then you do it and you simplify it. You simplify what you're actually seeing. Just because it's there in real life doesn't actually mean that that's going to make sense when we look at it. It's weird, but it's true. So I'm just softening the edges of some of these clouds, and I can darken up some of those clouds later. So the other thing that you can do, by the way, when you want to create the illusion of distance, I forgot, is you can, oops, that turned green. You can keep going with your cool blue into the landscape. Like, you don't have to stop where the sky ends, but you could actually cover that distant mountain with that blue. And we can darken it up and crisp it up later. I'm going to try to pull one or two more clouds out by lifting. Let me see if I can get some more light on this. Is this well lit enough for everybody?
Yeah.
All right. So it is fuzzing out because it's fuzzing right into the sky. So that's nice. I don't really love my clouds yet, but I can work on them a little. When it's drier, I'll make some of the dark bottoms a little bit darker. And then I'm going to use the same blue to keep things nice and harmonious, but I am going to add some yellows and browns to it as I go forward. So I'm going to try to keep this middle range of hills here. I'm going to try to keep it not so detailed, but using my brush strokes, I'm going to add a little bit of detail into it. And then I'll drop in some color to detail it even more. And I'm going to drop in some lavender because I feel like it needs to be a little bit purpler. I really like this lavender and green together. So I'm considering, you know, with the speed and detail with which we're painting this, that this is a study. Let's just say this is a study for a bigger painting. I'm trying to work things out, and I do that quite often. So as this comes down, it's also coming closer to us. So down here, I'm going to add some more detail of greenery, and I'm just going to drop in some of the color. Likewise, Randy, as you pointed out, it gets a lot darker at this level, so I'm going to darken things up a little. And I don't mind all these bleeds that are happening because it's just a study. But if you mind them, you can either lift them back out again, or you could use your hairdryer or just wait a little bit. Okay. Now there's not, in this picture, there is not that much of a shift in the greens. So you're gonna have to dramatize it a bit. Exaggerate it. If you really want this forward mountain here to come forward, going to have to really add a little bit more yellow to it. Than is actually here in real life. And just by sort of changing up your brush strokes rather than painting these areas as flat washes, just by changing up your brush strokes, you can give it the hint of more detail going on in there. So again, you don't have to be literal and try to paint all those trees. You can if you want to, but you don't have to, you know. You can just texturize things. And then I would probably normally use like a negative painting technique or do some masking or something to get this sense in here of these grasses, but just for the sense of the study, I'll just do some really quick negative painting, which is kind of fun because I always like forget to use my negative painting. And I can glaze over this with a lighter color if I want to. And I'm also going to exaggerate the color of this bush in the foreground. The bush in the foreground has definite darkness near the bottom of it. But if I put it in now, I'm going to lose, I think I'll lose some of the lightness. Maybe not. I'm going to throw it in there. We'll see. Okay. So now I can go back and I can adjust. So I'm going to glaze this mountain back here. It's dry enough, but it will still fuzz a little bit, which is great. So I'm just going to glaze that. I'm looking for a little bit of differentiation between the sky and the mountain, but not a lot. I don't want like a lot of differentiation. There we go. And I'm also going to create a few more dark color contrasts by using dark on damp back here and create some of these crenellations here. And maybe a little bit of them here too, because it's those shadows at the top that are the shadows of the clouds. I think they're quite interesting. By the way, I love doing wet on damp and getting those weird crispy edges. They're like a no-no in watercolor, but that's why I like them. So also maybe things, no, it's still pretty wet up here. So I could create a little more darkness in the clouds, but I really can't. Now that things are dry too, I can go back in and cover. I don't necessarily want all these white spaces and cover them a little bit. And so it's really, really wet. So we'll just leave it for right now. When things are dry, I definitely want to put some pretty yellows, I think, in here. Really bring this forward in here. It's a little bit too wet to do too much with it. But we'll get some of them in there. I really like this dark gray over here. I'm going to create a few more of them. I lost a lot of my white, or I didn't pull out enough white, I should say. It might have looked nicer if I pulled a little bit more white out of my clouds. That's what happens when you're rushing.
Mhm.
I don't know why I was rushing. There's really no need to rush. But for me, like as a study, that works pretty well. Put a little more lavender in there. And then it feels like there's some darks back here in this gorge. Yeah, I'm going to stop here. Let's see. It's got the makings of a nice composition. When I do it again, I'll do more white, leave more white in my clouds, and wait for these layers to dry a little bit because I got some green up in the skies. And then when it's dry, I would do some dark details rather than just negative painting. So I would do some dark details in here. So I'll give everybody a couple minutes because I notice heads down and I really want to have some time to share and see what everybody else did. And then we've got a second picture and we can do another quick study of that second picture as well.
Do we just take a break whenever we need to, Anne?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I totally forgot to give us a bio break. And my back doesn't hurt. I forgot all about it. But yes, please do. Take a break, change your water, have something to eat, and clean your palate if you need to. Appreciate you guys going through pretty much through lunchtime with me or right up to lunchtime. Thank you. So it's hard to do super dark darks when the painting is still wet, but the darks are very subtle, dark to light. I actually want to darken things up more in the foreground, but you have to wait until things are dry. So just like I did here, I had to wait until they were dry. And most of my paintings, I have to, even when I'm painting very al fresco like this, I have to give them time to dry. So if we broach a second picture, then we can still come back to this one at the very end and add some detail to it. and just complete it, you know? So if there's anybody who wants to share, raise your hand. I'll come around. I'm going to just get another piece of paper ready. Because I painted on a block, and so you'd have to take it off. But I do have this small piece of paper that I can use for the next one.
Okay.
So then the next picture has a different perspective. Randy, I'll come to you first. The next
Okay.
picture has a different perspective, so it will be, we'll get to use a little bit more perspective. Oh, Randy, that's fab. So fresh. I like the brown, the real warm brown next to that blue.
You know, these are those Viviva. They're it's
Ah,
a little hard to use just to figure out what color it's going to turn out, but
yeah.
I like this top or wrong side, this side, this top.
Yeah, I like it too. I find the Vivivas force me to do things that are like unexpected and just be intuitive. And so they're good for studies because you can't really get super finicky about things with them. You just
No,
sort
you
of
can't.
do what they want to do.
But if you keep them wet, you can also lift stuff off, like the purple in here. I just lifted that from the Viviva to get that color. So
That's nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
the only comment I would have is that that dark brown is a little bit on the cool side. The brown underneath it is warmer, so
Oh,
you may
point,
want
yeah.
to warm it up a little tiny bit more if you
No, I
can.
think you're right. Yeah, you
Yeah.
know why? Because I darkened it with the blue rather than with an orange or something.
Oh
So,
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Come on. Thank you for sharing. It's really nice work.
thanks.
You're welcome. Is there anyone else who would like to share? You don't have to be finished.
That's really adorable.
Okay, KK. Let me find you in my windows, and then I see D'Lo is up to KK. Okay, coming to you. Very nice, KK. That's very dramatic in terms of scale. I
Oh,
love it.
yeah.
You really zoomed in the scale. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
See, that's way to do an alla prima painting when you don't have a lot of time, is
Right.
to not do the wet and wet washes, but just do blocks of color like next to each other.
Yeah.
Very nice. I do like forget that I can paint that way sometimes. Yeah,
So
good
cool.
job. Nice,
Thank
nice
you.
colors too. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. And then I saw Diane, you had yours up. Thanks for sharing, KK.
Sure.
Ooh.
Oh, girl,
Nice.
Nice.
Wow.
look at that. Nice. So it's so graphic. It's so good.
Yeah.
That big sky really makes you feel that you're out there in the landscape. And you really pushed that purple mountain back with the color.
Yeah.
Nice job.
Thanks. Great.
Yeah, that's a really good little painting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mary, coming to you in a minute. We have time maybe for one or two more shares, and then we'll get to our next picture. Ooh, that's nice, Mary.
Yeah, it's really wet into wet, and then, like you
Yeah.
said, the next level will be more detailed. But yeah,
Yeah, you can always salvage it with when you have that underpainting. You can lift and fiddling. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I like the freedom of a wet and wet underpainting. Let's see, Bonnie, did you want to share? We haven't heard from Bonnie, and we always like to see her art. Okay, you're muted, Bonnie, so we can't hear you, but that's nice, Bon.
Thank you.
Love your clouds,
Thank you. I haven't quite mastered clouds yet.
Yeah.
but they're so abstract. They're so good.
Yeah, they have great personality and they really balance the like foliage down in the left corner.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you.
they really do. And your lines of perspective are really obvious in this. That's
Yeah.
nice. Really
That's
nice.
what you taught us today.
Draws you in. I love it when the students are good students.
Keep track.
Thank you, guys. Do you guys want to clean your palettes and then I will show you our next picture? I think
Yeah.
you guys are gonna like our next picture. All right, this is it. Isn't that gorge?
Wow.
Gorgeous.
So what you're looking at here is Ghost Ranch. And this is where I was last year at this time. It's so sad, but I did book a trip. So I'm going there at Halloween.
Wow.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, this is the path or one of the two paths from the dining hall back to the artist studios. And that building at the end of the path is actually the art center.
Oh my God.
So it's kind of
Wow.
hard to see. So I wanted to point out there is a little building there, which is, if you look, that should be your vanishing point, really, that building. So, and one way to kind of find the horizon, if you don't know how to find the horizon, like you may think the top of that mountain's the horizon or the bottom of the tree line is the horizon. But the horizon is always, when you're flat, remember again, your horizon is always at eye level. So if you were standing in front of that little art center and your head were in front of the door, right? Let's say you're at the door, where would your eyes be? They would be under the roof of that, but above the ground, right? So they would be like
The bottom of the
in the
mountain.
doorway. A normal sized person would be in the doorway. So if that is where your eye level is, then that is actually where the horizon is back there. So it may be a lot lower in this picture than you think it is. But does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when you're looking
Yeah.
at a picture and you can't find the horizon, look at the windows and doors of a building, for example, or look at a tree and say, if I were a person standing under that tree, if there was a person standing under that street sign or stoplight or next to that car, where would my head be? It wouldn't be below the car. It would be like right at the top of the car, pretty much, an average sized person. So that's how you can find your horizon. So take a little picture of this one. And I'm just gonna do a little thumbnail of this, a little one. Now, this is a horizontal one, so you could actually, I could just take this off of here, can't I? And do a normal size one. So this one is a little more challenging in the sense that there's a lot of detail in that mountain in the back, in the mesa, it's called. That's called, I don't know what they call that mesa. I asked a million times while I was there and nobody really knew that mesa. But that mesa has a lot of detail in it. It's not fuzzed out, and nor is it like lacking in detail in the way that it's that our last one was. Our last distant mountain was blued out and fuzzed out, right? But that doesn't mean that we can't simplify it. We also could include the detail and then decide that we were going to use our other constructs to push it back. So we definitely have a construct of perspective and scale, and you can use temperature also to push it back. So there's different things you can do to push it back if you like the detail in that mesa. So I'm going to do a fairly low horizon.
Would you say the horizon's about a third up, Anne? And 2/3 is
Yeah.
the,
Yeah, about a third up. And even if it's not really, you can choose to crop the picture mentally and do it. Oh, sorry. I meant to show my workspace. Give me a sec. So yeah, you can drop your horizon down. And I drew a crooked horizon, so never good. So there we go. Drop it down and just sort of crop the picture. If you need to actually crop a picture, you can always do that, but I just mentally crop it a lot of the time, especially when it's kind of a simple one. When it becomes more complicated. So I'm going to draw that little building right here. It's pretty tiny. And then I'm going to draw that my vanishing point is right here. And then you can draw your perspective lines. I'm not going to draw them in the sky. I'll just have to erase them. But I do want to draw some down here for the road and for the trees. And yeah, maybe I should draw a few of them over here. Okay. So I'm drawing them coming out. This will help me with my trees actually. Because I know I don't want to go above that line for my trees.
Would you say the sky is about a third of the picture?
The sky is the 2/3, but then on top of it, you have the mesa, right? So yeah, it ends up being about a third. Correct. So now just so I'm not seeing like I'm in the twilight zone, I'm going to erase some of these lines. And then I'm going to think about how I want to accomplish. Do I really want this road coming right towards me? I kind of do, because it's a memory of I walked that road 3 times a day, every day when I was at Coast Ranch, because it's from the dining hall. Yeah. So I like the road coming straight towards you. It will be a bit of a challenge to make that road kind of interesting. And then I'm going to say, okay, this is the road. This is, maybe I'll say right here is where that line of shrubbery is. So I'm just going to draw the line of shrubbery. And then this is where the line of trees are. So there's a whole stand of trees right here. So here's where we get to be overlapping, right? Some of them can be smaller, some of them can be bigger. But don't make, once you choose your tallest tree, don't make any trees go above that point. Is really the key. Now these trees really do follow the line of the road. Don't know why, but they do. So we can draw them kind of overlapping and then going back into the distance. And then I'm just going to hint at some shrubbery here. And there's also shrubbery over here. And by the way, I don't know if you guys could see it, but there is a fence. So if you zoom in, there's a fence. And there's actually a fence on both sides. And it goes in front of the trees. Oh, so these trees, I think, are too close. Actually, now that I look at them, I think they should be back on a radiating line over here. That makes more sense. So I'm just raising them a bit. And then the fence is over here. And one thing to remember, not only do objects get smaller as they go away, but they also, the distance between them gets closer. So for example, the fence posts they're going to appear to get closer together as they go into the distance. That's something a lot of people don't take into account. So for example, if you've got a building, not only do the windows get smaller, but they also get closer together as they get near the end of a very long building. And it's the same thing for a fence. So if this is the line of the fence, you have to shrink the distance between the fence posts as they get into the distance. And even the size of the fence post itself will shrink a little bit. It'll appear thinner in the distance.
And what would you want your focal point to be in the picture?
This building right here. And then the building has, I'm trying to zoom in on it. It has some other things back here. And then I'm going to get rid of my perspective lines. I'm just going to erase them because there's way too many of them now. It's like in between the fence posts. And I actually want to make my fence posts more crooked than where the way they are in the picture, because it adds a bit of quirk. So just erasing some of these now that they're there. And There's also a fence over here, but it's less obvious, but there's actually fences on both sides. So gonna soften up some of my lines and then get to work. So I'm gonna do a dry picture this time, just because I don't got the time. Well, the clouds in this picture are quite interesting, right?
Yeah.
So we don't have to do them the same way as we did our other clouds. We can do them differently. Sorry, I'm out of frame. I didn't mean that. So now there really is a color change in these mountains, in the mesa. I don't want a blue mesa. I really should have erased that one. Oops. So I won't go down over the mesa. I don't want a blue mesa. I'm gonna have to think about it a little bit, how I can make that mesa appear to be further back in the distance. Thank you. Okay. So now that things are wet, I can dab in a little bit more blue to the top. And you can add motion in these and do whatever you like. Okay. You can even pull some out, excuse me, arm for a quick sec. It's gonna go in front of the camera. You could twist the paper towel, and by using the twisty, the pointy part, you can pull out some nice long lines. That's a nice sky. Those clouds serve the purpose of drawing our eye towards the focal point. You'll see I moved them. I moved them so they're converging closer to the focal point. And now I'm just going to paint around the painting. I'm not going to gradate my foreground because there's too much going on in that foreground. So I'm not going to do like one big gradation, but I will try to darken and warm things up just by dropping in color. While I wait for this skyline to dry so that I could do the mesa. So I'm looking at the colors. Gosh, they're really like is a beautiful warm beigey kind of green, like a lime green, but beigey. In the foreground area, it's really, really nice. I really like it. And I'm kind of working my strokes and keeping them along the perspective lines. Remembering to keep some of my, even when you're doing verticals, they can still, even though they're straight up and down, the bottoms of them stay along the perspective lines. And then we've got these blue-greeny desert kind of grasses here. So nice. And these actually go up in front of the darker green trees. This is quite often when I don't have a lot of time. This is how I paint in plein air. And then in plein air, you can add a color that has more opacity to it, like a lavender or a titanium buff, which are super helpful. If you add those, it just dulls down the greens and browns and things like that. But what it does is it has a little bit of white in it, which is thicker. And that enables you things to not run so much and bleed so much because of that white in there. Things aren't going to bleed as much. So one thing you might notice too, by the way, is that, and so I'm going to change it now to purple as I go up here, but the background and the mountain aren't a hard line. They never are. A lot of people draw them very like separately, but your greenery often goes up the mountains or up a hill. It's at the higher elevations a lot of the time that you don't have that greenery. So if you blend them, if you combine them, it's a lot more natural looking. So this is a warm color. It's brown mixed with white, so it's like a buff. But I put a little bit of lavender in it to cool it down just a little bit. That's a nice base for things. Sky's not as dramatic as it could be, so I can always kind of adjust that later. But, oh, we're a little bit over. Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
We just keep going? Okay. Well, we'll just keep going. If you have to go, though, I do understand. And you can just catch the rest of it on the video.
I think you said the class was 150 minutes, so you got till 12:30, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, you're right. I want to make sure we have share time now, so. So now I'm gonna make sure I keep my greens a little bit warmer in the foreground and a little bit cooler as they go back. And I'm just touching in the base of them to kind of ground them a little bit. But I'm gonna try to get a little bit of a darker, cooler green to be the trees here, because those trees will push back with a bit of a cooler green. Doesn't have to be like dramatically cooler, but I want it to be noticeably cooler. And then I'll add some darks to create some shadow and also to help bring them forward. So you can put dark things in the background as long as you keep them fuzzy and you cool them down, like those dark trees. They're darker than anything so far in the painting. I'll balance them out, but they're also cooler and fuzzier. That question I'm always asking myself. I'm always saying, is it darker? Is it lighter? Is it cooler? Or is it warmer? I'm always asking myself those things. And that keeps it in check, because otherwise I would just be painting away and I'd lose myself in the pleasure of painting, which is good. But when I'm painting to actually paint something, it's also a good idea just to keep in mind a couple of simple things, and this helps keep it real looking when that's my goal. Okay, so just a few details. We want fewer details, and I'm gonna wet the edges and kind of fuzz some of them out a little bit. I want that dark crenellation. That's pretty cool. I feel like my painting can handle it. And then I'm gonna try to put in some of these fence posts. Which, by the way, you could just do them with some negative painting, which I've already sort of started doing, is putting them in with negative painting. So I'll just finish. I don't have to put them all in negative, and I don't even have to put them all in at all. But I'll just hint at a few of them as I go back here. So some of them can be negative and some of them could be positive. There we go. And then what color should I make this building? Could be any color, but I think I'm going to try to tie it into the color of the mountain because it really is. So I'll make it like a cooler beige. If you remember from our color lesson yesterday, you want your shadows to be like a bluey purple. See how there's shadows here in the road? Make sure your shadows, look at them carefully. Make sure they come out from something, and make sure they come out in a way that's believable. If you put all your shadows coming forward in a foreshortened manner, it probably won't look that great. So just observe as much as you can. Observe carefully. I'm going to put some more detail in the path up front. Sort of loosen it out as it goes back. Not really using any red in this picture, just using my earth tones, by the way.
What color was the mesa? Is it almost the color of the road?
Yeah.
All right.
In this picture it is.
I meant the building, sorry, the building.
Oh, the building. Yeah, I made it the same color of the road. It's like a sandstone color. It's really like you almost can't see it at all, you know? And then I'm just gonna put a couple of shadows here. I'm gonna put some purpley kind of shadows down at the base here because plants throw shadows and they also have core shadows inside of them. So by putting a few of them in, it grounds them a little bit. It also gives me a chance to get some more darks up in the front of the painting. And then down at the base of the building, what it really is a roof overhang to shade, but it's kind of hard to tell, but I can't put that in because it's still too wet. So I'll kind of leave that for right now. And then the only thing is I kind of forgot to put any kind of trees back here and cover over that pencil line, that horizon pencil line. So I'm gonna put a few different ones back here. Not too much. I feel like my picture's almost finished. I'm pretty happy with it for now. So, but I do want to get a little more detail going on in these flat spaces. That's up to you. Maybe you guys don't want to. And again, it's real dark back here in the picture, but I'm gonna leave it not dark. I'm just gonna darken it down here at the bottom so it looks a little bit more clean and differentiated. You can also put a highlight on your fence post or darken one side of some of them. That does also help things look real. I meant to put a shadow coming out from the fence posts and I forgot. We'll get that in there. The sky needs a little work because it's a little bit boring. It's a little one note, let's say. You can play around with it as you wish. I'll just put a little bit of color in it. Just for now. There we go. And then I usually do like a final look, and actually I feel like this still is coming forward too much. So I'm gonna put a little more purple into the mesa. And I'm basically just gonna cover up some of the beige with purple. That's all I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna leave that beige coming through so I still get the color of the mesa. But by covering it up, there we go. I can push it back a little bit. And I feel like that's it. I'm gonna stop. I could probably add, oh wait, there was one more thing I wanted to do. I wanted to put some more detail in the road. Hello, welcome back. Somebody just came back. So I'll spotlight myself. I know we're like painting frantically, but here we go. Probably could pop that a little bit more. So maybe I'll wait. Maybe I'll put a red roof on it. Sometimes just by putting a different color, even though it's not a red roof in real life, by putting a different color, your eye will automatically go to that like an exclamation point. So see the little tiny difference that made? Also could make it a light building rather than a dark building. That would have been another way to go about it. It doesn't have to be like fire engine red. Just something that's a little bit more contrasted. So now my eye goes to it a little bit more. So it's kind of rough. Needs a little bit more darks down here grounding it, but it's definitely the beginnings of something. And then I can also go back to this painting that now that things are dry, and I can darken things up in this painting a little bit and make it a bit more like believable here. So now that things are dry, it's a lot easier to go back into it and just add a few more details into it. And that was something I really wanted to do, was to make this forward mountain come forward a little bit more here by darkening it. So I'm pretty pleased with how this came out. The colors could be a little bit more cohesive with a little bit more thought to it, but that's okay. It was like really fast color mixing and I'm pretty happy with it. For some reason, it's not really showing as well. There we go.
It's pretty.
Thank you. Well, it gives me the feeling of being there, which is really good. That's what I wanted, right? Karen. Hi, Karen. Did you have a question, Karen?
I do. I'm sorry. I had to unmute myself. Wanted to say hi too, because I haven't said hi yet. My speaker's kind of, or I mean, my microphone's kind of far away because of the way I'm sitting. But anyway, would you mind showing the picture again? And because I wanted to take a picture of it.
Sure, not at all. Grab that. Yeah. Let me make
Thank
it.
you.
I'll make it bigger, actually. That might be better. So now you can actually see the building a little bit better.
Oh,
It's,
yeah. Yeah,
Sam's
thank you.
dark windows. Yeah. You can also see the crenellations in the mesa better here and the fence. Yeah. Fences. You're welcome. Does anyone have any questions while we're here?
I do.
Yes, Diane.
In the painting, I honestly couldn't see the building, so I stopped because I couldn't, I had decided that a different thing was the building. But what is that white, bright white thing that looks like it might be to the right of the building?
Oh, I think it's a sculpture that's there.
Okay.
Let me look at it again and remind myself.
Yeah,
It's-
it may be my vision. I just couldn't.
No, there was definitely something there. I'm trying to remember what it is. I wish I could definitively say. I don't remember what it is, but I would eliminate it because if it's confusing for you, it's confusing.
I thought it was actually a reflection when I took a picture of it, but
I don't think so.
no, I see it now.
A flag or something.
Yeah, a flag or a sign or something. It looks like it.
Yeah, I don't know for sure.
Well, there's a sign up closer, and then there's
Yeah.
a couple other things that look like mailboxes or something, and then that just, I don't know. It doesn't look like part of a building though.
Hey, it's a smudge on my camera because I really don't remember there being anything there. And the sculpture that's there is actually black. So not so sure about that. Any other questions?
And you mentioned something like buff titanium, and I've only heard of white titanium, but I noticed it was on your supply list.
Yeah.
So what exactly is buff titanium? I mean, is
Buff
it just
titanium is a light neutral. And what it is I can't really show you the pure color right now because I have a little yellow that went in it. I'll try. It is a color that's made up of 1 part yellow ochre and 2 or 3 parts white watercolor. And so it's just a neutral. It's a buff. Yeah, and it's made with titanium white. So
you can mix it with your other colors. You were saying like making them
you can
kind of
mix it with a lot of colors, and it slows down fast moving colors, and it slows down drying time because it's got all that white in it, which has a lot of, dextrin or chalk in it, that gives it opacity. So it's also slightly more opaque, and that opacity makes it a little heavier. So I like to use it. Yeah.
Cool. That's cool.
Yeah. It also, it's just a nice neutral color of like rocks. So
yeah.
Hey, can I show this? This is from a National Art magazine I have. But I thought you might, it's just a photo, it's not a painting, it's a photograph, but if you look, if you see the bison, this is such a classic and great example of what you're teaching on perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see there. You see how big they are in front, and then you see the clouds in the back. The front one is just huge, and then and then they flatten out, just like you said.
What a good example. There's so many good examples. Like trying to paint that would really fulfill everything because it's warm, so clearly delineated, warm to cool. And then also the detail in the grasses in the front just becomes horizontal and diagonal lines as you go further back.
Right.
Diagonal and then flatten out to horizontal.
Yeah. It's
really nice.
I just thought this was a pure example of what you've been teaching in a photograph.
Yeah, it is. And now you'll start seeing it everywhere. And the more that you train your eyes, the more you'll see it in even more complicated or less obvious scenes. So yeah, but it's nice to see those pure examples.
How these oops, they're gone. The clouds that were over on the left side, they're totally flat. They're way back in the distance.
Let's see again. Can you put it up?
So if you look at these over here, look at how flat they are. The other ones
also
go back.
A beautiful picture. Yeah, it's a beautiful picture in terms of composition because everything is drawing your eyes towards those foreground bison and the line of bison. And like if you look at the perspective line and the line of bison, it actually echoes in the clouds. And so those clouds are converging. So even though it happened in nature, there were probably 30 other photos where the clouds weren't lining up that well that photographer didn't choose because they weren't like illustrating the composition as well. So that picture is really telling a story.
Yeah, yeah. I thought it was a good one for your lesson today.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that looks like a fun one to paint.
And
Yeah.
you
For anyone there, Mary? Yeah.
can you show your picture again?
Me or Randy?
Sorry, I wanted to see your picture.
No, that's
Oh.
right. Yeah, that's okay.
Mine. Here you go. The painting, right?
Yeah.
Let me spot it. Yeah. My trees got mushy from going too quickly. But this would be again a study for me. I generally am not painting something complex like this quickly.
Yeah.
But I really like a lot of things that are going on. And I feel like by doing a color study, you have fun with it. You can make mistakes and you can go, okay, that works. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely, I want a little bit more definition between the sky and this, because not because it needs it, but in New Mexico, the sky is really bold.
Wow. Yeah.
So I'm learning things by doing color studies, and I do them all the time. I don't always do them on good paper, but I do them all the time. Yeah, Mary. Hi. Did you have a question or you want to share?
I'll share as far as I got. Oop.
Oh, wow.
Hold it up a little higher.
Oh, wait, let me turn. There.
Boy, that sky is great.
That sky came out really good. Nice job with your warms and cools. That definition's really great. Yeah, your trees, they could recede better.
Yeah.
Right now, they're all on here. I'll spotlight myself next to you. Yeah, I know you know that, but go ahead and keep it up. So your trees, the bottom of them are pretty much all on 2 horizontal planes. If you angled that a little better to go with the perspective line that was radiating from the focal point, it would help it look a little bit like they were going back. Even if you still want it to be a stand of trees and not a line of trees, you can still slightly put the bottoms on that perspective. But
Yeah.
it's really good. And the fence is great too.
Thank you.
Nice job. Yeah. I only point things out because we all have like areas where we can improve, and I think it helps each other.
Oh, yeah. Look at this one.
Okay, I'm coming to you, Diane. Thank you, Mary, for being the first to share. Appreciate that.
Mary.
You're up, Diane.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I gotta go after this too.
Oh, that looks great.
So here's mine.
Great. Oh, that's so nice.
Ooh, nice. I
You
love
really simplified things, and you get the feeling of being out in that park, out in the desert.
Good.
Ooh, yeah. I like
Really
the reds and the blues in the sky.
lovely.
I feel like I kind of got a little lost in the Mesa part a little.
That's it. It doesn't look lost.
Oh, good.
I mean, you got the constellations at the top and beautiful sky. Your road looks real. That's really
Okay.
nice.
Yay, thank you.
By the way, if you want to study perspective lines, the painting you bought for me behind you has a very good 1-point perspective in it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're going to do great up in the mountains.
thank you. I can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm off to go see my dad. So bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. Okay, I'm
Bye.
going to see you, Minnie, and then Hillary, you'll be next, so you'll have to turn your camera back on. Yeah.
Ooh, nice.
Oh,
Oh, nice.
Wow.
I feel the heat
Yeah.
of the desert. Really good job, Minnie.
the clouds are great.
It was hard.
Yeah, that sky is really nice. Hard.
Yeah.
You could have narrowed the road a little bit more as you get to the distance.
Okay.
A little wide. If you actually drew the radiating lines, they would converge at that point to a point, and yours don't. So it'd be a little bit. So yours actually looks foreshortened too much. So if you next time you do it, make sure that the line comes to a point at the focal point,
Okay.
like it does next to it, like the swath of yellow land next to it comes to a point over there. But you've got it. You got all the elements. Good job.
Oh, the idea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah. Okay, Hillary, then Ginny.
I'm letting mine dry. I mean, it's not completely done, but this is what I've done.
Nice.
Oh, pretty.
Oh, nice.
Very
Oh,
nice.
Great.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank
It's
you.
so it's like so much suggestion.
Yeah,
Very
Which is what-
suggestive.
thank you, because that's what I'm working on. More suggestion, less detail.
Your
Yeah.
road
Yeah.
has the same problem as Minnie's.
Yeah, because well, in the picture it is wider though, so I guess that's what I was trying to do.
It isn't. You just can't
Okay.
tell. It's
Oh,
weird.
okay.
You can't tell.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
it may widen a little bit because it may be like there's like a parking lot sort of area. It's not a
Okay.
parking lot, but there may be, yeah. But
Do you want the building and it coming more to a point in the building at the end?
it's just another case of where you know that to be true.
Mhm.
And when there's a parking lot and it really gets wider, that doesn't make sense when you're looking at it. So in order to
Yeah.
achieve the depth, make it narrower, even if that's not what you think you're looking at. So
Okay,
that's a
okay.
good example of that.
All
Yeah.
right.
but-
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Ginny, thanks for
It was a
sharing.
really great class too, Anne. Thank you. I learned a whole bunch.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Ginny, very nice.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
Very
I got the
good.
same problem. It didn't come to a point. And I got a question. What if you have a really beautiful, gigantic tree near that house, near that building?
You
A
have
really gigantic one.
really gigantic. Well, you can do that because there are often really old big trees that are built next to an old house, but you have to scale it appropriately. It has to be believable.
Okay.
Like how low is that building? That's a 1-story building. So the tree has to be scaled to that. And you can draw it, or in a study, you can try it. And if it doesn't make sense, you may have to leave it out or
That's-
scale it
That's
down.
good. It's kind
Yeah.
of like your sign for the snakes.
Yeah, exactly. If that's your story, if you really want that tree, let's say it was like your childhood house and the tree you used to climb in, and you really want it in that picture, and you want it to be the way that you remember it, you can do it. You just have to take it into account as much as possible, how to make it still believable in the depth of field.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. That's really nice. Marisha, I'm going to come to you. You guys can lower your hands once I've called on you.
Oh, that's
Oh,
nice.
that's really good.
Yeah.
You. I did the
Wow.
same thing.
Look at the sky.
Yeah,
Oh my
that's
God.
Cut off.
Great.
Yeah,
Wow.
so I think everybody was like, in the picture, it might look like it's wide, but in reality, a road would not be as wide as the building is wide. That doesn't even make
It
sense.
wouldn't.
Yeah, but that's really beautiful, Marisha. Good
Thank
job.
you.
You're welcome.
It's
Thanks for
more
sharing.
foresty though. I liked, was it Diane, the lady where it was
Diane's
really sparse?
Yeah.
She really
Yeah, she covered
captured
the trees.
the feeling, you know?
Yeah, I like that feeling too. And that's, she's really talented at designing her paintings. So
Yeah.
she chose that one stand of trees and she eliminated all the others. And so you
Yep.
really got that vastness of it.
It's a good lesson.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's also why it's good to do like thumbnails, because you work all those things out before you go to the
Mhm.
paper.
Mhm.
Okay, I got Joyce. Thank you, Marisha. Joyce, hello.
Oh, very nice.
Oh,
Nice.
nice.
Very nice.
Wow, your fence.
Ooh.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Oh,
Wow.
I feel like I'm there looking
Yeah.
at your Joyce.
your fence posts are
Yeah.
wonderful.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
they're fabulous. They feel like the old fence posts leaning away,
Yeah.
like not straight up and down. Really
Yeah.
good job.
And I got
Nice
my
and warm up front too.
small at the end.
Say again.
I got my road small at the end.
Yeah, it looks
Yes,
really
you
good.
did. Yeah. And you made your building a little bigger, so it's a little more readable. Very nice.
Should I have more
Nice work.
contrast though in my mountains and mesas?
I know.
I like it.
No,
I like it.
Mm-mm.
Yes,
I
it is.
mean, the
Yeah.
story here is that road, and
Okay.
your walk to it. It's so believable.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that Mesa is really a supporting character. So
The tipping back fence posts are amazing. That's what
Yeah.
makes the picture.
I agree. And also your road has a slight bit of like curvature to it, which gives it a little bit of country quirk. It's really nice.
Country quirk.
Thank you. I like the country quirk. Yeah. Is there anybody else who wants to share?
I'll share, but it's really pretty.
Yeah, I like that. Wow.
It's like way too wet.
Yeah, but it's really loose and beautiful. You can always on top of it with dark.
Very abstract.
Yeah, your
I like
blooms
that.
for the trees are really pretty.
Thank you.
Yeah, and your
Wow,
sky
that
is
is
really
really
cool.
nice.
Yeah, it's very KK when I see it. I like the color that you made the little building in the back too. Pops it.
Yeah.
Not really what you're looking at, but it doesn't matter because it reads. So now that mine's dry, I can actually see my red building a little bit better.
So pretty.
That's so incredible.
So thank you guys for coming. So this recording will be posted to YouTube and I'll send it out to everybody by the end of the day tomorrow. Hopefully I'll get it up today, but I didn't want to make promises because sometimes it takes a long time. So anyway, the next workshop is going to be about color harmony and a really easy way to use a simple limited palette, but still have a lot of freedom with your color choices. And that'll be the next workshop. And as soon as I have a date for it, I meant to do that and I forgot. As soon as I have a date for it, I'll put that into place. That one may be a little bit more expensive. It might be $25 because it'll take me a little bit longer to put that one together. This one was an easy one for me to put together, and that's why I was able to offer it at such a low price for everybody. But really appreciate you guys always supporting me. I love painting with you, and it was really fun today. So thank you so much.
It was so fun. Thank you.
Really fun.
Thank you, Anne.
It's great.
We love you, Anne.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I love you guys too. You're my community.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a good
Anne.
Have a great
weekend.
week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Everybody.